Uncommon. Today we are here with Dan Armstrong with Covenant Eyes, and he's doing us a favor of giving us some time for an interview. We were on his Facebook Live a while back, and it was very, very impressive to see these guys and what they do every single day. And so I thought you may be blessed to hear what they do right from Dan himself. So Dan, thanks for taking some time to spend it with us today.
It's my pleasure to be here, TJ, and thank you for what you do with Uncommon, creating just such remarkable content for men and people who are struggling. We're in this fight together, and it's so neat to link arms with people that are like-minded, organizations that are like-minded, so that we can be more effective.
Amen, amen. So if, many of you guys may have not heard of Covenant Eyes. Dan, give us a little synopsis of what Covenant Eyes offers.
Sure, absolutely. Since 2000, Covenant Eyes had pioneered what was known as internet accountability. So the founder of Covenant Eyes had created something that he didn't want to have to be over his children's shoulders 24/7 while they're experiencing technology. And he didn't want to tell them, no, you can't ever look at this, because that would be draconian and wouldn't be a good teaching tool. So developing Covenant Eyes so that he could see what they're looking at without even being there. It actually recorded where they were going, and then it created a report to see if there was any problem with that. That has evolved since then, and we recently released what's called screen accountability now, where you don't even have to be on the internet for things to be captured. So text messages and those kinds of things that don't use a traditional internet connection, those things can also be monitored and reported on, because texting, mobile devices, those are what everyone's using now, and people experience the internet on their mobile devices now. So anything that you can see on your screen can now be monitored through Covenant Eyes' new screen accountability service.
It was weird that, I won't say the name of the app, but when I have two sons, are about 22 and 20, and a couple years back they mentioned this app that, once I say this, you'll know exactly who it is. Take a picture and it goes away in 24 hours. And I'm like, who is this aimed at? Why would that be a thing? And over time, I'm like, oh, okay. So there are people investing dollars in this. And so it's interesting to see how, like any industry gets affected by an industry that you may not quite know where it's coming from. I've always heard that the porn industry really kind of pioneers a lot of the technology developments of how they push out media, and that has trickled into the technology-wise, at least, into like web development and so on. And so since I'm in that industry of web development, I heard that, and it just stuck with me years ago, and I'm like, I wonder if this came from that. I hope not. So, but one of the things that is kind of was on my radar recently, and it fits talking to you perfectly. We live in Charlotte, North Carolina, and there is a mall that's near us. And of all the things in North Carolina, this is like the top one or two things for tourist destination. It's not a great mall by any stretch, but it's near the Lowe's Motor Speedway. So a lot of traffic gets pushed there while races are going on for like a week or two. And so a lot of foot traffic. Well, it is also the #1 location for sex trafficking in our state. And so I wanted to ask you and get your opinion and some feedback on, for the guy or even the woman who does not think porn is connected to human trafficking, what would you say to that, Dan?
That is a wonderful question, and I think an honest question that a lot of people ask, especially outside of the church. People would say, what am I hurting if someone is voluntarily doing something with a camera somewhere, maybe in Hollywood, maybe somewhere in California, maybe somewhere else in the world, and I voluntarily am experiencing this, and I'm doing it by myself, and who am I really hurting? I think that's an honest question that people ask, and I think a lot of Christians may be even asking that, but for every time, it's a whole supply and demand. It's basic economics of supply and demand. So when you create this demand, and that's what porn does, you know, you have to have the supply of that. So it has to feed one another on that. So every time you click on something, how do you know that you're not clicking on someone who's a slave? Do you know the background of the video you're watching, the pictures you're viewing? How do you know that person's not being forced against their will? A lot of them are. If you interview a lot of former porn actresses and actors, they would say they were forced to do things, or if they didn't do things, they knew they'd be blacklisted and that they'd never be hired again. So the more you will do is the more you get paid and the more additional jobs you get. So there's just one simple connection there. But really, pornography is the ugly tip of the mass media iceberg that's fueling that demand. The porn sites draw buyers in. It gives them an idea of what's available to them. Mostly it's youth. And you probably seen this with a lot of people who have come to you, that a lot of what the porn industry is selling is youth. They accentuate youth. There are whole topics on barely legal teens. There's even one called jailbait, just to get the idea of younger. And no wonder that 25% of global human trafficking is children. Now, 75% of all human trafficking is female, but 25% of all of it is children, because pornography trains people to say, you know, younger is better. So they go for younger. You know, porn is also anti-woman. When you think about it, culturally, you see a lot of, you know, people will say, well, this is a women's rights issue where she can do whatever she wants with her body and those kinds of things. And it's feminist and those kinds of things. But really, pornography is anti-woman. When you've seen so many high-ranking men, especially in the last year or two, you think Charlie Rose, Matt Lauer, Bill Cosby, Louis C.K., people that were taken down, and for good reason, for mistreating and abusing women. Now, specifically in the Louis C.K. case and also the Charlie Rose case, it's interesting because they both have said that they believed the women that they were mistreating actually had shared feelings for them. Now, the women gave them no indication for this, but what gave those two men that idea? Pornography. Where else in the world is being a predator toward women not only accepted, but encouraged? I mean, there are entire genres on pornography. So it trains the mind to say that women want this, women want to be treated this way, or disrespected in this way. So men follow up with that, and they're getting into trouble now because of this, because that's how they've done this. You know, anything that these men have done have been storylines in pornography. So they're simply parroting what they're seeing on the screen.
Yeah. I was talking to a gentleman just yesterday, and he's one of our volunteer writers, and he was writing about porn. And, you know, we're talking about, like, when we were teenagers, you know, I guess the biggest outlet was books. And I'm assuming you can only get them at, like, drugstores, because that's where you would see them behind the counter.
Yeah.
Now, I don't recall if they're still there or not. I haven't been inside a convenience store in quite a while. I usually get gas and roll. But we're so connected these days. It's either put in our hands, and it's too easy. And people think that just like there's a disconnect with relationships with social media, ironically called social media, there is this disconnect with sex with pornography. And so if you had to say which demographic is the one who watches porn the most, like, would you be able to tell gender and age?
Sure. That's a very good question. And it's interesting that pornography is probably the only business on planet Earth that really has no target demographic. If you go into a marketing meeting with any company and someone says, okay, who is our target? And someone says, everyone, they'll throw the person out of the room, because you're not targeting. The whole idea is to target who is our consumer, and we're going to target them, and we're going to sell to them, and they're going to buy from us because they need what we want. Pornography is not like that. Pornography is going for men, it's going for women, it's going for young, it's going for old, it's going for rich, it's going for poor, white collar, blue collar, any ethnicity, any background, any location, it's everybody. But to your question, there is a group of people that experience it and view it more than others. And according to the 2016 Barna report that Covenant and I helped commission as well, 72% of men ages 13 to 24 watch pornography either daily, weekly, or monthly. 72% of men between that 13 to 24 age group. Now, the second largest is men ages 25 and older would be that, which is interesting because we also found out in that report that people's perspective in that age group of what pornography is extremely skewed. They have a very lax attitude toward pornography, so much so that 90% of teens and 90% of young adults, so young adults are about 18 to 24, so from 13 to 24, so 90% of teens, 96% of young adults, when they talk about porn, it's either in a positive or neutral way. So they're not saying, oh, that's bad, you shouldn't do that. It's either neutral, where it's like, oh, it's neither good nor bad, or it's actually encouraging. Mm-hmm. So they have a very cavalier attitude about this, and their definition of it is extremely skewed as well. The definition of porn has changed. Only 39% of young adults believe a fully nude image is pornographic, and only 50% of teens believe a fully nude image is pornographic. 58% of teens, only 58% of teens, and young adults believe that an image that is an actual sexual act, less than intercourse, but still a sexual act, only 58% believe that's pornography. So imagine if you're talking to one of these young people and they've been thumbing through an old-fashioned Playboy magazine, and you'd say, hey, have you seen pornography recently? They would say no. And they would even say that while looking at the Playboy magazine, because they don't describe that as pornographic. This is the softer stuff. This doesn't count as porn. So that number, 72%, is probably a lot higher than that because their definition is so skewed.
I knew that we were making some cultural changes when Playboy magazine stopped putting naked women in their books.
Isn't that crazy?
They said we really can't compete with what a person can pull up on their phone anytime, day or night. So we're not really selling books anymore. So I guess there's no nudity. I guess I'm not sure if it's all articles or what, but I know that happened in the last year or two. So very odd.
Unfortunately, they've reintroduced it as well, and it's even gotten
really?
more. It's even gotten worse too with their videos. So they've gone the other way, and I think they stopped it for a little bit just to kind of get people talking about it, and they did on both sides, saying, "Wow, how interesting that a pornographic company that pioneered this is putting clothes back on people to be able to to compete," but then they're right back to the filth.
Oh wow. Yeah, it should make all of us, when we are out in the public eye and you see either your children, however age they are, especially if they're young, or another table with a child that is, 8, 10, 12, 13 years old, glued to a phone. Many times the parent is using that as a babysitting device. And, being in the creative industry, there have been times when we've done research on a topic that was completely innocent, in one art image of the results come back with a naked woman. I'm turning my wife, who sits right there from me, I'm using her chair right there, and I say, how in the world does an image like this show up on this search topic? And she's like, because they know that it's close enough. You guys, oh yeah, it's just a hop, skip, and a jump away. And so I've noticed that more frequently when we're out seeing young children with phones in their hands. And we just had a friend have an issue with their child and their phone. And so it is something that all of us need to be aware of. And also those who, even if you're a fan or not a fan of Uncommon, connect those dots between sex trafficking and pornography. It is more or bigger than just you and what you're doing and you and your world. You are feeding the need for someone to be doing these acts, and you don't know if that person is being held hostage in a room in between these type of scenarios or not. So don't be naive to believe that it's not hurting anyone.
And then I want to echo some of what you said there and then kind of add some additional perspective to it. If we knew that the largest, let's say a 10-story building was about to be built in our neighborhood that was going to house the most exhaustive collection of adult material known to man throughout history, would we not at least tell our children, when you come home from school, when you walk, can you go a different way and not even go near that place? Or maybe you'd petition to say, you know what, we don't want this in our neighborhood. We would rather have that somewhere else. We don't want it anywhere, but especially not near us. But that is exactly what we're doing when we hand kids this. When we hand a kid this that's unprotected, that doesn't have any type of software on it that would help monitor it and report it, that is exactly what we're doing. We are opening the doors to that building and letting them in.
Wow, that's a great point. For those of you who don't know, we partner with Covenant Eyes with Uncommon on our resource page. There is a link to their website. You will get 1 month free of their service by going through that link. But Dan, tell us what the easiest way for them to start using Covenant Eyes.
Sure. Best way to go on the device that you normally use, whether it's a laptop, desktop, tablet, or a phone, and go to covenanteyes.com. And it's such an easy process to sign up. You just click and put in your information, and you will put in your information, and you'll also pick someone. Usually if you're signing up for your children, the parent will be the ally for them. Or if you're a single person, that you'll put maybe a pastor in, maybe a trusted friend. So you'll be putting someone in there that will help you along in this journey to hold you accountable.
Nice. And we all need accountability, guys.
We do.
Every person going through something would benefit from having another person there to help them through it. So,
sure. And also, if they use the Uncommon link, they'll get their first 30 days for free as well, TJ.
Exactly. In the link, in the post below this video, you will see a link to the covenanteyes.com/stop-demand. That link will be active on the post of this video. And Dan, I want to thank you again for your time. I'd love for this to be a kind of a frequent, like once a quarter thing, that we can kind of just keep this fresh in people's minds and prayers of how we can just stem the tide of this, because if we don't do anything, it's not going to stop on its own. So thank you for taking the time today and just investing in people the way you guys do.
And thank you so much for the work you do, TJ. It's always a privilege to be on, and I would welcome to be on as many times as you would have us.
Right on. Well, thank you, brother. Have a great day, okay?
You too.